Superb actors, both on the threshold of stardom, the way they were in the 1960s. Faye Dunaway was voted the most successful film actress of 1967. The year I saw her, she had made 5 pictures in 18 months, and she was the object of considerable media attention. Arthur Penn, the director of Bonnie and Clyde, had called her a lonely, complicated, torn, intelligent girl crying out for fame. Another big film of hers, The Thomas Crown Affair, was about to be released. She was no amateur. She had had a successful career in the theater. Her hit plays had included such classics as A Man for All Seasons, and in one other, she had had to play a sobbing drunk for 2.5 hours on the stage. Now, how could she do that? How was she able to work herself up into that state, fresh, every night? So that's what I asked her.
Well, it can be done a variety of ways. You know, you attempt to do it by living that situation, you know, by yourself, who's the same thing as the character in that situation. And if that doesn't work, you think of other things that might, you have to keep stretching yourself to find that fullness of emotion for that scene. That's why stage is so difficult and so rewarding.
Because you have to do it every night. Now, you could make yourself cry by remembering a scene from childhood that had made you cry, I suppose.
Yes.
But if you keep remembering that scene, doesn't it get stale?
It does,
So you have to remember a new scene from
and that's a dangerous thing to do unless it's rehearsal, because if you remember that scene, you get a divorced kind of feeling, because that is you as a child, and then 2 seconds later you've got to be Kathleen Stanton and something else is happening. So it's that's why it's much better to be you in that situation, so that in the next situation you're you in that situation.
How many scenes from childhood have you got that made you cry?
Oh, I'm sure there are several. I don't know.
Did you have a happy childhood or an unhappy one? I read a bit about it. Lonely.
Both, really. Not terribly. It was there was a divorce in the family when I was older, but the childhood itself was not particularly unhappy. I remember that my relationship with my mother, for example, was very close, you know. It was not until really my teens that there was the divorce, and that certainly is an adjustment that people have to go through.
And you were poor? Or you said
no,
that?
we were lower middle class, you know. It was
poor.
Not poor by any means.
You once mentioned about the business of being poor and the business of being child of divorced parents and poor parents. I think you lumped that together, or else somebody quoted you as saying that.
Probably they did. I don't think I've ever used quite those terms of it. It was a difficult childhood, beginning from the divorce, really, because that is difficult emotionally, and I imagine financially. It was a bit less of an easy life than it was before.
You've mentioned that a lot in pieces that have been written about you. I gather that hit you quite hard and produced within you some insecurity and some introspection.
Yeah, I think it was a very important thing in my life, an important occurrence, because it influences one's life very much. I think I think the problem is that many people go through a life and there's a divorce in it, and then they have a few hang-ups after that, and they keep either dismissing them or not recognizing them and not really trying to figure out. But when I started to think, well, look, why am I not living as fully as it? Why am I not enjoying this? And why is this disturbing me? It's ridiculous that I should be this. Then I started looking back and finding, well, yes, I remember that, and it began to make some kind of sense. I, in a sense, began to own my life much more than I ever had before.
Let me examine in some detail Arthur Penn's quote about you. He used 5 adjectives, all of them powerful ones: lonely, complicated, torn, intelligent, and ambitious. Why lonely?
I don't know. I think I am lonely.
Still?
No, not as much. I think that what I mean by lonely is perhaps, in essence, I have a feeling of loneliness, perhaps. I don't quite know why, and there are lots of reasons for it, I'm sure, but I'm not as, well, I guess I'm not an extrovert, as you would call it. You know, I don't go out to people as much as perhaps many people do. I have a tendency to be alone, as opposed to live a gregarious sort of life.
Does it bother you, the loneliness, or is it part of do you like to be lonely? There's a difference between being alone and lonely. I wonder what...
Yeah, I think that perhaps they're confused often when I talk about being alone, because I think that I find that a certain amount of that loneliness is very necessary for me. I think there are times when I cut myself off for perhaps a role, you know, as Bonnie was, and I cease to really function as socially as I might otherwise, you know, as I might when I'm not working. And I think perhaps that makes people say, well, she's a very lonely person, because I work very hard when I'm working, and that means that I don't really see too many people. So that may have been why Arthur said that.
Somebody once said of you that you never allowed yourself to feel young.
That's true.
Why not? What's wrong with feeling young?
Well,
I
I
thought the
think
whole
that
American bit was to feel young these days.
Yes, well,
and you weren't that old.
But so much of the whole American bit is really a ridiculous kind of scene. You know, it has absolutely nothing to do with reality.
You're not going to get an argument out of me on that. But,
what did you just say now?
You never allowed yourself to feel young.
Yeah, well, I think that was because early in my life I latched on to some ambition from somewhere. And I think that I had a passion for acting, and I think that my total concentration on that really cut out much of the things that I would have done ordinarily as a young person, as a 14, 15-year-old, and where an ordinary 14 or 15-year-old would be going to the prom and doing things like that. I did that to an extent, but not as much. I really focused much more on I was acting in a play, or I was working, or I was doing something, and I think that is good in a sense, because it did make me work very hard in this field, but it's bad because you cut yourself off, you know, you don't have that reservoir of experience.
That you can tell what kids are going to do by what interests them when they're young. I'm interested to know at what point you got interested in acting and decided, or had a vague decision at least to be an actress.
You know, I can always remember you say a very vague, an unspoken kind of leaning towards it. I always did plays. I always played games where I was acting or dressing up or things like that. But I never really said, yes, well, this is it, and committed myself to it until I was the third year of college, really.
The actress gets applause, and the applause can be interpreted as a symbol for love. Were you seeking applause? A lot of people go into acting to seek really love, the feeling of the audience accepting you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's impossible to deny that is a degree, that is a part of the psyche of an actress or an actor. That's part of what they're looking for and wanting. But I think that if that's all you have for it, then I think that you have to forget it, or you won't pursue it for your life, because that certainly is so far from enough. You know, there has to be just a love for the doing of it, just to enjoy yourself while you're doing that. That's where it really is at. Yeah.
You've been described as fairly ambitious. Arthur Penn, again, to quote him, said that you were crying out for fame, and your mother said that you were born with drive, because I think you were a premature baby.
You make me sound like a machine. I'm terrible. No, I don't know. I found that label being put on me a lot, the ambition. I don't quite know the definition of it. I think that it may be confused with, if you see someone working very, very hard, and some people say professionally, they put that word on it sometimes, but if you see them really working with great passion, it's possible sometimes to interpret that as, oh, how ambitious she is, she wants to be a star, when it could be that I love what I'm doing. You know, I think that both are a part of me, but the only thing I object to is when the ambition becomes the label.
Or when the ambition is seen to be ruthless.
Yes, well, I think I disagree
those
with
two
that.
words are tied up in our
I'm
scheme
afraid
of
they
things,
are,
aren't
yeah.
they?
And I think that is, I think, one of two sins to be ruthless that way, because that implies that you hurt someone else. I don't think that's anyone's right.
Doesn't it interest you that in this society, where ambition plays a very great part, and where people are in one sense supposed to be ambitious, if they're labeled ambitious, it's seen to be derogatory in a way?
Yes.
Because the ambition is always thought of as a bad thing, even though people admire ambitious people.
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange. I think because you get, ambition is confused with going for a result, where what you've got to go for is the path to that result. It's like going to Europe. Your ambition is to get to Europe. So that many times what happens if you have that strong ambition is that you don't see anything of the trip to Europe. It's only when you get there. Right. And the trip is what life is. The trip is what brings the enjoyment, the satisfaction.
As in life, as in air travel, getting there is half the fun. I think that's what they say.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Now, you've had a fantastic 18 months. You've made 5 motion pictures. You've become almost instantaneously a movie star. Has this been a frightening thing? It must have been exhausting. You must be happy not to making a movie at the moment. But has it? How about success? I don't want to use the corny expression of success spoiled you, but what's it done to you?
Well, I think that one of the things it's done really is it's all been very good with me, because, again, the occupational hazard of being an actress is insecurity, or an actor, whatever, is that you work today, but tomorrow you may not work,
Yeah.
you know, and that when one becomes successful, you can relax much more, because the scripts are coming in, and you know, well, I don't have to work now, I can do this now, I want to furnish my apartment now, that's something I want to get involved in.
Have you been able to
work
come
later.
to terms with what is obvious security now? I mean, you've got it made, and...
Well, you never have that, really.
well, you feel that, but...
No, it's a matter of degree, really. No one has it made ever, and if you, the trap is really getting caught and feeling that and thinking, oh, I have it made and I'll do a film for $300,000 and that's fine. But that $300,000 film may be one you don't want to do. That wouldn't be an interesting trip to take, an interesting thing to do. So it's a matter of keeping your eye on really what you want and what will help you fulfill yourself more, broaden yourself, stretch yourself, you know. And it's a marvelous thing that you have. It's an opportunity. It's a freedom, really. Success is freedom.
Of course it is.
You can choose what you want to do. You can choose what's most exciting for you. You know, you don't have to be a slave to, yes, but I'm not working now and I have to make some money, and all of those kind of ridiculous things.
For the moment, at least, this has ended for you.